Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, what the heck is going on in Israel? It looks like the entire country is teetering on the edge of civil war. There have been mass protests against the government, the recently re-elected government of Bibi Netanyahu, and we're going to get into it. So it basically seems that all of this originally started when Netanyahu made a move to try and cut down the power of Israel's Supreme Court. Now, Netanyahu is currently under investigation for, I don't know, something bribery or corruption or something like that. And he wants to pass a law that would allow the government to basically control the committee that picks Supreme Court justices and stop them from removing a sitting prime minister. Bibi's latest incarnation will be, I believe, the 5th government that Israel has had in 2 years. So they are in a state of rapidly cycling governments where everything keeps falling apart. And as you can see from this original image, there are a number of people, a whole group of Israelis who believe that Netanyahu is essentially a fascist along the lines of Trump and Putin. And it seems like it's really, really, really kicking off over there. Now, it's quite interesting to see the dynamic at play here. Unlike the sort of diaspora Jews in the West and America in particular, who vote overwhelmingly Democrat, inside Israel itself, there is a vastly polarized sort of opinion with a group of what most people would think of as sort of liberal Israelis on the one side, very, very woke, very pro-LGBT, all of that kind of like stuff. And on the other side, a significant portion of Orthodox Jews who are, I guess, what the left would call right-wing, who favor a sort of more top-down authoritarian kind of government, or as the left would call it, fascism. And this has resulted in the most amazing protests that have been coming out of Israel over the past couple of days. I'll play you some footage. This is, I believe, a protest on the Ayalon highway in Tel Aviv. A lot of this footage is unmarked. I got it from Telegram. Some of them are saying that these protests are outside the Knesset. However, I had a look on Google Maps, and this appears to be right in the center of Tel Aviv. So I imagine this is the Ayalon highway, because the Knesset itself is somewhat out on the edge of Tel Aviv, as you can see here. It's not right in the center of the city. However, the protests are very, very impressive and very, very, very large. According to some media outlets, there have been upwards of 600,000 Israelis out on the street. For a while, Ben Gurion Airport was closed. They were blocking roads. Schools were closed. Banks were closed. Corporations were shutting their doors. There was like talk of a general strike, and it has just all been kicking off. This, I believe, is from last night. Check it out. This is some more footage. The Israeli police have been out with water cannons, producing footage like this. I mean, this is truly a sort of like noteworthy clip. Now, I think that clip is actually outside the Knesset. As you can see from it, it's not in a very, very built-up area. It's a relatively flat skyline. I think this is actually outside the Knesset. As you can see, there are, LGBT flags there as well. Israel, of course, being known for having a very, very large LGBT community. This is some more footage, I believe, from the Ayalon highway. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Any Israel bros that are watching this, please feel free to correct me in the comments. Israeli politics is extremely complex and opaque to a Gentile such as myself. So, any additional information would be very, very much appreciated. And this is some more from the Ayalon Highway, I believe. Now, the sort of battle between the left and the right in Israel is basically peaking, and reached a sort of fever pitch after the Israeli defense minister, whose name escapes me, Yoav Gallant, spoke out about the supposed proposed reforms to the justice system, and was then fired by Netanyahu. This led to like a lot of rumors that sections of the IDF may in fact rebel against the government, and started a wave of, potential strike action and all kinds of like very, very concerning stuff. I'm not sure who's going to be the new Israeli defense minister, but, this is very, very serious stuff that's going on here. However, eventually, it came out that Netanyahu said that he was going to delay the reforms. He didn't say that he was going to stop them, merely delay them. Now, Netanyahu is in kind of like a lose-lose situation here, apparently, right? If he gets the reforms through, he may be facing sort of widespread insurgency. There are, it seems, a whole bunch of, I don't know, in the West, you'd probably call them sort of, Soros-funded glow groups on the ground in Israel. Indeed, there was this great article I discovered from Haaretz. I've been reading a lot of Haaretz recently because I'm not really that familiar with the Israeli media landscape, that basically says that there are highly organized groups on both sides of the political divide in Israel, that they're all organizing over WhatsApp, and presumably they all have, ideological motives and funding. And caught in the middle is sort of a vast chunk of the normal Israeli population who just, want to go to work and, get their kids to school and stuff like that, and find the entire thing kind of exhausting, which I guess I could totally understand. I mean, it would be very, very interesting if Israel itself is actually getting sort of glow-opped by Soros. The classic 4chan meme is that, it's always the Israelis behind everything. But it seems that the Israelis themselves are not immune from this kind of warfare tactic. The Americans have also not been silent about this. Apparently, they were very, very concerned with Netanyahu coming back and with him sort of trying to tamper with the Supreme Court. It makes one wonder whether the Israeli Supreme Court was a way to sort of keep a hold over Israel. Now, obviously, the lefties would be like, oh, it's fascism and everything is the rise of a military dictatorship. But they basically say that about everything. You break wind in a sort of like, weird direction, and the lefties are like, oh my God, fascism is, approaching. But there is, I guess, a sort of fundamental question here over whether it is the executive that rules the country or the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court has the ability to veto any decision that the government makes, then really technically it's not the government ruling the country, it's the Supreme Court. And since the Supreme Court is not elected by democratic mandate, you could make an argument that that is actually less democratic. Of course, in current year, no one really cares about whether something is democratically elected. Everyone cares about whether the people that are in power share your ideology or not, particularly in these highly polarized times. And Israel seems to be incredibly polarized at the moment. So we have America basically sort of making noises saying that Netanyahu's Israel is becoming an unreliable ally. This is quite a crazy article to read, because the Americans, who have traditionally shielded Israel from literally all criticism and, stop them from having any consequences at the UN, seem like they are on the edge of turning around and reminding Israel that without America's protection, they would have been screwed by the UN for ages ago, for not only the Palestinian war, but for like their nuclear weapons program and just like a ton of stuff. Israel has ignored the UN for ages, principally because of the US vetoing any actions against them by the Security Council and constantly running interference for them in the UN General Assembly. This is the interesting part. Politically and ideologically, Israel is perceived as a backsliding democracy intent on transforming itself into a quasi-authoritarian system, first by severely weakening the judiciary. This strikes at the core of the special relationship between the United States and Israel, one based on shared values, that Israel seems to be deliberately retreating from. Furthermore, the Netanyahu's government policy goals and actions vis-a-vis the Palestinians are burdening Washington, which has provided Israel with an airtight diplomatic umbrella since the 1970s. So there are a bunch of Jewish sort of congressmen and senators who are sort of openly criticizing Netanyahu and sort of like threatening to pull US support for Israel, which is sort of the backbone of the entire security architecture of that part of the Middle East. There is also the sort of problem that Israel has always been a massive enemy of Iran. And now that there has been rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and it looks like there will be peace in Yemen, the Israelis are once again apparently agitating for war against Iran. Now, usually they would get the Americans to do their dirty work for them in this respect. This is the sort of classic dynamic that the US defends Israel's security interests in the Middle East. However, the US cannot really afford to go to war with Iran at the moment because they have all their problems with Ukraine, Russia, China. The US has got a lot on its plate. And so I believe the Americans may actually want Israel to make peace with Iran, something that certain parts of the Israeli establishment are really not going to like. Israel and Iran hate each other, like just really, really hate each other. If the Chinese could broker a peace between the Israelis and the Iranians, that would be basically a miracle bolt from the blue. So, for the moment anyway, Netanyahu has agreed to pause the judicial reforms. It looks like most of the strikes have been called off for the moment, although no doubt they will explode again the moment that Netanyahu announces that he has made some kind of compromise. Or, I mean, this is the thing, what kind of compromise really can you make? Half of the country wants Netanyahu gone because he's a fascist and a criminal. The other half want him there because he's a nationalist and he's more right-wing. So there's not really going to be any sort of peaceful resolution to this. So heck knows what's going to happen. I will keep you all informed. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you very much. Please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment, all that kind of like stuff. If you hated it, also leave a comment. Also, come along to my live stream on Rumble, 8 p.m. London time. Every Thursday, come along and have a chat and, catch up with the news, watch some funny videos. It's, it's a good time. We'll see you all there. Good night.